Okay, today I wanted to talk a little bit about Bitcoin. Now, I've had quite a few different orphanages over in Africa contacting me trying to get help for their orphanage. Now, over in Africa, they have these warlord drug lords riding around in army jeeps with 50 caliber machine guns in the back and a whole bunch of 50 caliber ammunition. And they got these little 25, 50 man militias with all kind of automatic weapons, military grade weapons. And they go all over Africa and they shoot the farmers and they shoot the farmers' animals. And now that leaves a bunch of orphans over there in Africa because the mom and daddy's dead and the farms have been taken from them. And so you got a bunch of orphans over there. Now, how do these drug dealers, warlords, drug lords, how do they move their money around? You got this dark web. It's called Satan's web. And they use Bitcoin to move their money around for the drug dealers. And now these arms dealers, the people that supply the drug dealers with all these arms dealers, they get paid with Bitcoin, the dark web, Satan's web, Bitcoin. So they can do it secretly and nobody can follow the money. And then you got cyber criminals, like those cyber criminals that decided to shut the pipeline down between Houston and the East Coast. Those Russian hackers, they got $4.5 million. And how'd they get paid? Bitcoin. And then you got your crooked business people here in the United States that don't want to pay taxes. So what do they use to hide their money? Bitcoin. Satan's web. It's all about Bitcoin. And then you got congressmen. They want to get political money. And that's how a lot of that congressman's campaign contributions are through Bitcoin. So you don't know who's even giving them money to the political arena. So, and you got the same problem down in Guatemala. You got these drug lords riding around in army jeeps with 50 caliber machine guns and little militias with their automatic weapons. And they go around shooting people. And now I saw the other day there was 10,000 Guatemalans crossing the border every day. Whole throngs of them coming out of Guatemala. Well, what's your choice? You stay down there in Guatemala and you get your butt shot by these drug lords and their militias, or you get out of there and protect your family. And the only thing I can see is to write your congressman and tell your congressman to outlaw this Bitcoin. Now the Chinese, they outlawed Bitcoin several years back. But here in America, we haven't done anything about Bitcoin or Litercoin or any of those cyber criminal coins that the cyber criminals use and the drug lords and the arms dealers. That's how they move their money around. So if you want to help, now over here, not too far from where I live at, Swanee Farms. And the Bill Gates organization that Bill Gates runs, he decided to buy Swanee Farms and grow peanuts there and ship those peanuts over to Africa. Well, Bill Gates knows about computers, but he's no farmer. You know what the IRS calls a farmer that loses his shirt 3 years in a row? When he doesn't make any money 3 years in a row, that's called a hobby farmer. You're not a real farmer anymore, according to the IRS. You're what's called a hobby farmer. So Bill Gates and his organizations what's called by the IRS hobby farmers, because they may know computers, but they don't know how to grow peanuts. And they've got a great big processing plant in the middle with refrigeration. And during the wintertime over there at Swanee Farms, they grow cabbage and carrots and all kinds of beets and turnips and collards. They grow all kinds of vegetables during the wintertime over there at Swanee Farms. And they've got a processing plant to process it all and to keep it from spoiling. And so they got him a real peanut farmer over there named Sanchez that already grows a bunch of peanuts already, so he knows how to grow peanuts. And he's growing peanuts for Mr. Gates' organization now. They tried being farmers, pretend to be farmers, for 3 years, and they found out it's cheaper for them to buy the peanuts at the mill than it is to try to grow them. So that's the way it is with farming, though. The idea behind farming is to try to make $1 out of that dirt. After you pay for the fertilizer and the seed, you try to make some money instead of losing it. Anyway, we're going to continue on in the Apocrypha. This is the book of Judith, chapter 2, verse 25. He encircled all the sons of Midian, burning their tents and plundering their flocks. He went down into the plain of Damascus during the wheat harvest and set all their fields on fire and destroyed their flocks and herds and plundered their cities and devastated their lands and smote all their young men with the edge of the sword. So fear and horror on him fell on all the inhabitants of the seacoast who were in Sidon and Tyre, and those who lived in Sur and Achim, and all who lived in Gemana, and the inhabitants of Azotus and Ascalon were exceedingly afraid of him. So they sent messengers and said in peaceful terms, "Here we servants of Nebuchadnezzar, the great king, lie before you. Use us as you please, our dwellings and all our land and our every wheat field, our flocks and herds, and all our tents fold lie before you. Use them as you please. Our cities and their inhabitants are your slaves. Come and treat them as you see fit." So the men went to Holofernes and told him all these things. And he went down to the seacoast with his army and put garrisons in the high walled towns and took men from them as allies. And the people and all the country round welcomed him with garlands and dancing and music. And he broke down all the frontier landmarks and cut down their groves. And he succeeded in destroying all the gods of the country, in order that all the nations should worship Nebuchadnezzar alone, and that all their tongues and tribes should call upon him as God. Then he came toward Esdraelon, near Dothan, which is opposite the main ridge of Judea, and they pitched their camp between Geba and Scythopolis, and he remained there a whole month, in order to gather together all the transport of his army. Then the Israelites who lived in Judea heard all that Holofernes, the commander-in-chief of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Assyria, had done to the heathen, and how he had plundered all their temples and destroyed them, and they were dreadfully afraid of him and disturbed about Jerusalem and the temple of the Lord their God, for they had recently come back from their captivity. And all the people of Judea had gathered together not long before, and the sacred dishes and the altar and the temple had been consecrated after their profanation. So they sent into all the borders of Samaria, and to Cona, and to Beth Horon, and Bel Remain, and Jericho, and to Chobia, and to Azariah, and the valley of Salem, and occupied in advance all the summits of the high mountains, and fortified villages,